In this video, we're going to talk about adding data to a map. So we typically do that through layers. So right now I'm at the RCView main page. I'm just going to click on the map portal. And then at the top I can choose map, and that's going to bring up a new blank world map here. So if you don't see the entire world here, and maybe you're just zoomed in on a certain part and you have a base map that's changed, if you're following along with the last video, Portal will actually save your work if you are working on a map and you go back to Portal to search for a layer or something like that and come back in. Your last work will still be in there. Don't rely on that to always save your work. If you're working on a map and you want to save it, definitely go up and choose save. But if right now you're looking at something different, just go up to the top and hit create new map. It'll ask you if you want to save your current one. You can choose yes or no. That's up to you, but we'll just start with this map of the entire planet. So that's where you should be. So if we want to add, let's say we want to make a weather map. Now there's a lot of weather data on the web. We're going to use quite a bit of it as examples here because there's a lot of really good sources out on the internet. One thing that we can do is just search for layers. So I go add, search for layers, and we're searching in Portal for ArcGIS. So Portal for ArcGIS is actually the service that we're using for creating our mapping. So that's kind of the default here. We can actually search for other things. We can search for the entire web for layers that we can add on. We can just search if I'm in a group, or like right here, I'm in the Central Florida region group. If I am just working in a specific group on a project and we've created our own layers, I can just search into there. So right now we'll just leave it on Portal for ArcGIS. We want to see what's already available to us in the system. So let's say we wanted to do weather. Click in and I actually get a few different listings here. So a lot of NOAA content is in here already. I can look at outlooks, watches, warnings. There's a lot of different radar. I'm just going to choose the first one on the list here. So I'm going to click that on. And it's going to pop in a little bit of radar data automatically for me. So that's pretty neat. Go ahead and just choose one of these. The NOAA Nowcast may not be the first one that pops up on your list. I would just choose one, see what pops in. I could even choose another one. I can choose this weather advisory, see if anything pops in. You will note, okay, so this one actually says it's unavailable. So that is one thing about web services, is sometimes they change, they update, they move somewhere else. So they may not always be available. So you may have to find that layer somewhere else, which we'll look at in other videos. So I can try another short terms. Let's see if that pops in. So if I needed short-term warnings on my map and it's not available in Portal, that may be where I go out to the National Weather Service and see what layers they have available there. So that's another avenue that we'll explore in another video. So if I just hit that I'm done adding layers in here, let's actually zoom in to the United States. We can see that this radar data is coming in. If we go over to the layer list here, and actually this is something I should point out here, on the side where I had my legend before, I actually have a few options. I have the legend, and it'll actually let me know for the warning areas. I don't see it on the map, I guess because there's none actually issued. Right now there's no flood warnings or tornado warnings currently going on, but if they were, you would see little outlines in these colors. So the legend here is actually going to give you information that just comes in with that layer. So you can even see with the radar data, the legend is quite extensive. And that's actually something that we could choose to not even show to the end user. This data may not even be necessary or make sense to the end user, so we could just remove it from the legend entirely. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. So the second list here is actually the contents, or you could think of this as the layer list is another term for this. So it's going to show us what layers we have. So I had the short-term warnings. Again, we don't see any. There's no short-term warnings going on right now. The radar is down here. So if I unselect that, I actually turn off the radar layer. I could turn it back on. We saw that in the DRO tracker earlier. We could turn on and off individual layers if we wanted to. Beneath that, there's these 3 little dots. If I click on that, that's actually going to give me more options here. And so a few things that we could look at here, I could actually change the transparency of that layer. So with that radar data, it could, cover up something underneath that layer that I need to see. So I can make it more transparent or opaque if I needed to. The visibility range, so this is actually kind of neat if you're working with data that has a lot of little tiny points. We'll look at cast cases later on. You can actually set the level at which this layer turns on. So right now I've kind of shrunk down the visibility range so this layer won't turn on until I'm at what's considered the county's level. So if I start zooming in on the map, you see this little black triangle here. It's not quite to the county's layer yet. As I zoom in more, now that radar data is going to pop in here. And you may have noticed on the side here, if you look real closely, when I zoom out on the map, that layer turns gray. As I zoom in, that layer turns black. That means that layer is on. So that might actually be something, if you have, like I said, a lot of little data points on the map, when you zoom out, the map's just kind of covered in these points. It doesn't really help the viewer at all. So you wait until the user zooms in that these individual points show up. Or maybe with the radar data, maybe, again, it takes too long to load when you're looking at the entire country. So you wait until the user zooms a little bit more, and then you can kind of set that level. You can say, well, I want it at this level. So you take that little slider back. And now at this level, the radar data appears. I could rename this. This is actually a pretty good name. It tells me where the data is from, what it is. It's the Nowcast NexRad radar. A lot of the layers don't have very nice names when you pull them in from the internet. And you always want to think about the audience for this map. So if it is general public, you want to make it kind of as easy to understand as possible. So we could rename this layer. I could remove the layer entirely, delete it. Hide in legend, so that's actually something that might be helpful as well. If I go back to my legend, that list of 10,000 colors is gone now, so that's a nice feature. We can set the refresh interval. So this is nice because this is radar data, so maybe every 5 minutes we want to refresh this layer. Some layers will automatically refresh. They're built to do that. Some will not. We can enable the time animation, which I will warn you does degrade performance. So it's very tempting to have a cool radar loop on your map. It may work if it's the only thing on your map, but it does slow down the performance of the map. The last one here is details. So we can actually look at this and find information about what this layer is. Of course, this relies on somebody actually putting this information in. So this has a lot of data in here. We actually find out that this radar is updated every 10 minutes and every 2 to 6 minutes during precipitation mode. So this is actually updating by itself, which is good. We can find out a lot of information about this layer. So this is a really good documented layer. Not all of them have this. If I wanted to move these around, you can actually just click and drag and move them up and down. We can add other layers as well. So I'm just going to delete. Just going to look at some of the default layers that pop in. These are going to be kind of current or new ones in here. So as we go down, we'll actually see a few different kind of icons here. So some of these have a little orange and red kind of shape here. And as I move over them, the description says feature layer. And then as I go over this one, it says it's an image layer. And this one's an image layer. So it's kind of important to to understand what these mean, I'm going to go ahead and add the social vulnerability, or also known as SOVI index here, just to kind of show you what this looks like. So now I could go through and I could move that radar on top of this layer that I added on underneath. So that's just an example of moving layers one on top of the other. My extent, my visibility range. I turn that off, or turn that to a larger extent here. So now I actually move the radar to be on top of the social vulnerability index. If I moved it down, the radar would be covered up. So that was the reason that I added that on, just to show you about moving layers on it up and down. But something I wanted to mention about, you'll see items here that say feature layer and map layer, or map image layer. Just going to go to the PowerPoint real quick to talk about this. Those refer to what are called feature services and map services. So you'll start to kind of get the hang of this as we go through and start adding layers on there. Feature services, they generally allow you to do more work with styling, and we'll look at what styling is in detail in another video, but we can change like colors of attributes, we can change and have custom images or logos based on attributes of items. They are a little slower, they offer a lower performance, as we'd say. Map services, they're going to be faster to use, but you can't do as much styling, and some layers will only come through as feature layers, some will only come through as map layers. So you may not even have to worry about it, but sometimes you will have that option. So you want to think about, am I worried more about performance of the map, or am I worried more about being able to style this map and do custom things with it? But as we go through and start working with these layers, it'll become a little bit more clear about what these kind of things do. But that's adding a layer from searching inside of Portal. So in the next video, we're actually going to go out to the web and grab a layer and bring it in.